The stars stretched endlessly across the sky, distant and cold, yet somehow alive with possibilities. On the small exploration vessel Aurora, Captain Elias Rowe stared out of the observation deck window. His ship had traveled farther than most humans dared to go, skimming the edges of uncharted sectors, mapping empty systems and probing for signs of life. For over 30 days, Elias and his small crew had followed a faint signal, a pulse that seemed almost alive. It wasn't strong enough to be natural, nor did it match any known technology from human colonies. It was, Elias admitted quietly, intriguing in a way that stirred both his curiosity and unease. "Another day, another empty system," muttered Lieutenant Mara Voss, leaning against the console. She rubbed her eyes, the exhaustion showing despite her attempts to maintain composure. "Honestly, Captain, how many times are we going to orbit dead planets before we find something?" Elias didn't answer immediately. He had learned long ago that speculation without evidence was a waste of energy. He kept staring at the dim readouts. The signal hadn't changed, but it had grown sharper over the past week, as if it were aware of them. And then, like a whisper against the void, it happened. A blinking light appeared on the main sensor array, a small, metallic object, dormant yet unmistakably artificial. Elias straightened. "Bring it up on the scanner," he ordered. The holographic display lit up with the object's shape. It was small, no larger than a human child, smooth and silver, with delicate patterns etched across its surface. Its form was both familiar and alien, as if it were designed to be approachable yet undeniably otherworldly. "Is it alive?" Mara asked, her voice tinged with awe. "I don't know," Elias admitted, "but it's been sending that pulse for over a month waiting." The crew exchanged nervous glances. No one had ever encountered a signal that seemed like it was intentionally trying to be found. There was something almost human about it. Elias made the decision without hesitation. "We're bringing it aboard, carefully." The ship's robotic arms extended, delicate and precise, and lifted the object from the surface of a barren, rocky moon. The pulse became stronger, a rhythmic thrum that resonated through the hull, almost like a heartbeat. When the object touched the deck, the room went silent. The pulse stopped, and then a small hatch opened on its surface. A soft blue light spilled out, illuminating the faces of the crew. "I have been waiting," a voice said, not mechanical, not alien, but soft, almost human, yet undeniably strange. Elias froze. What are you?" The light coalesced, forming a humanoid figure. It looked small, fragile, yet there was an unmistakable presence about it, a calm authority that seemed far beyond its size. Its eyes glowed softly, reflecting curiosity and something deeper, intelligence. "I am called Kale," the figure said, "and I have waited for a human." Mara stepped back. "Waited for a human?" "Yes," Kale replied. Its voice was melodic, not loud, but it filled the room with clarity. "For over 30 Earth days I have sent signals, but only humans would respond. Only humans could find me." Elias' mind raced. "Why me? Why now?" Kale's gaze softened. "Because humanity is ready. You are ready." The crew was silent. Ready for what? Ready to learn, to fight. To die? The question swirled, but Kale offered no immediate answers. Instead, it extended a hand, a simple gesture, but the energy in that gesture made the air hum. Elias approached cautiously. The hum was not threatening, but it resonated with something deep inside him, as if calling to the very core of his being. "You choose to trust us?" Mara asked, skeptical. "I have no choice," Kale said. "You found me, that is the first test. The next will be greater." Elias nodded. "Then we will follow, but you must understand we don't know what lies ahead." Kale smiled faintly. "That is the beauty of humanity. You step forward even without certainty." And with that, Kale guided the crew to the vessel's laboratory. It needed examination, not as a threat, but as a mystery. Every surface of its body glimmered with unknown alloys and energy conduits, yet it seemed fragile enough to be human. Over the next hours, the crew studied Kale. Sensors indicated life signs, but not in any form they knew. There was intelligence, yes, but also a form of energy that seemed conscious. And then, the most extraordinary discovery: Kale could interface with the ship. The control panels lit up when it touched them, and the vessel responded as though it were alive. "Do you understand our technology?" Elias asked, amazed. "Yes," Kale said simply. "I was designed to learn, to adapt, and now I must teach in return." That evening, as the ship drifted above the barren moon, Kale spoke again. "Humanity has always been strong. You survive, you create, you fight. But there are forces in the galaxy, forces you do not yet understand. I have watched. I have waited. And now the time has come for you to know your potential." Mara frowned. "Potential for what? War, conquest?" Kale shook its head. "Not conquest, protection, evolution. You have the ability to rise above, to reach heights no other species can, but first you must trust yourself. And each other." Trust was not easy aboard the Aurora. The crew had faced dangers before: pirates, cosmic storms, mechanical failures, but nothing like this. The presence of Kale, its intelligence and calm authority, was both awe-inspiring and frightening. Yet slowly, a sense of unity formed. They were no longer just explorers. They had become participants in something greater. Over the following days, Kale demonstrated abilities that defied understanding. It could manipulate energy fields, repair damaged systems with a thought, and communicate information in ways humans had never imagined. And through it all, it never demanded obedience. It asked only understanding. Elias observed quietly. Humanity, he realized, had always excelled when faced with challenges that seemed insurmountable. The explorers had adapted, invented, and survived because they refused to give up. And now, faced with Kale, they were confronted with the ultimate challenge: to rise beyond their current limits. On the 35th day, the pulse returned, this time stronger, resonating not just through the ship but through space itself. Kale's eyes glowed brighter. "They know we are here," it said, "and they are coming." The words hung heavy in the air. Who? What? The unknown stalked the edges of human understanding, yet in the hearts of Elias and his crew a spark of something familiar ignited: determination. Fear was present, but it was tempered by curiosity and courage. "We will face them," Elias said firmly. "Together." Kale nodded almost approvingly. "Good. Humanity must always rise to meet what challenges them. It is why I waited, and it is why I chose you." That night, as the ship drifted silently among the stars, the crew gathered around the observation deck. Kale's form glimmered in the corner, calm and patient, as they watched the endless expanse of space. It was quiet, but in that silence something profound was understood. Humanity was not just a species of survival. It was a species of hope, courage, and unimagined potential. And the universe, vast and unknowable, had finally taken notice. Elias clenched his fists, feeling both the weight and the wonder of what lay ahead. This was only the beginning. The journey, the tests, and the encounters would challenge every human on board, and perhaps humanity as a whole. But for the first time in over a month of searching, he felt a certainty that was stronger than fear. They were ready. And Kale had waited for them. The stars outside the Aurora's hull glimmered like tiny jewels against the black canvas of space. But tonight, the silence of the void felt heavier. Captain Elias Rose stood at the observation deck, eyes fixed on the distant pulse Kale had warned them about. It was growing, expanding in rhythm, like the heartbeat of the galaxy itself. "Captain," Lieutenant Mara Voss said, joining him quietly, "the readings from the sensors, it's not just one object. There's an entire fleet approaching, something unknown." Elias did not flinch. He had faced storms, cosmic anomalies, and pirate attacks, but this was different. This was intelligence beyond human understanding, and yet deep inside a spark of confidence flickered. Humanity had always faced the impossible. Kale hovered nearby, its form glowing softly in the corner of the deck. "They are observers," it said. "They test civilizations. Many have failed before you. Many will fail after. You have the choice, stand ready or be consumed." Mara shivered, not from fear but from awe. "Consumed." "Do not fear," Kale replied. "You have something they do not. You have determination, creativity, and hope." Elias turned to Kale. "Then what do we do? How do we face them?" Kale's eyes glimmered. "First you learn, then you prove yourself." The next hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Kale guided the crew to the ship's laboratory, where it began teaching them ways to interact with energy in a manner no human had ever known. It was not magic. It was science, elevated to levels humans could barely comprehend. "Focus on the rhythm," Kale instructed, hovering near the console. "Energy is not simply power, it is flow. You must feel it, guide it, and respect it." Elias stepped forward, placing his hands on the interface. A soft hum resonated through the deck. Images and data flowed directly into his mind. Not words, not numbers, but pure understanding. He felt systems within the ship awaken, respond, and expand. It was as though the Aurora itself had a heartbeat now, and he could feel it. Mara followed hesitantly, her skepticism slowly giving way to comprehension. Her movements were cautious at first, but as the energy flowed through her, she began to manipulate small fields around the console. Sparks danced in the air, not chaotically but deliberately, like water responding to a guiding hand. The rest of the crew watched in wonder. Humans, Kale explained, were uniquely capable of improvisation. Machines could mimic patterns, but humans could create, adapt, and think beyond limitations. Hours passed, and as the Aurora's systems grew alive under their guidance, the distant pulse approached closer, no longer hidden in the shadows of space. The crew could see faint outlines of the fleet now, ships unlike anything cataloged in human databases. They were sleek, angular, almost organic in shape, reflecting starlight in cold glimmers. "They are waiting for your move," Kale said softly. "They do not attack immediately. They observe, seeking weakness." Elias clenched his fists. "Then we show them strength." The next day, Kale took the crew outside the ship, into the vacuum of space, though safely tethered with energy fields it generated. There, amidst the stars, they trained in ways unimaginable. Kale taught them how to manipulate energy currents to reinforce the ship's shields, how to predict movements of objects in space using intuition rather than instruments, and most importantly, how to work as one cohesive unit. "This is not just training," Kale said, its voice echoing in the quiet void. "This is a test. You will face trials, you may fail, but each failure teaches more than victory ever could." Elias felt his confidence grow. Humanity had survived countless crises, faced famine, disease, war, and the endless void of space itself. Yet, for the first time, he understood that survival was not enough. They had to rise to exceed, to embrace the potential Kale had spoken of. Days passed and the unknown fleet drew nearer. Their shapes were now clearly visible, massive and daunting. Sensors detected energy emissions far beyond anything human technology could produce. And yet, Kale remained calm, its soft glow steady and reassuring. "They will test your courage," Kale said. "Do not flinch, do not hesitate, trust in yourselves." The first test arrived without warning. A massive ship from the fleet emitted a pulse that struck the Aurora's hull. Shields flared, systems buzzed, and alarms screamed. The crew moved instinctively, guided by Kale's instructions. Elias felt the energy flowing through him, reinforcing the shields, directing power to critical systems. Mara adjusted the energy currents around the engines, creating a temporary burst that allowed the ship to maneuver. The pulse dissipated, leaving the Aurora intact but shaken. The fleet's shapes moved again, observing, waiting. Kale's eyes glowed brighter. "You see," it said. "They test fear, they measure hesitation, but you acted. You created solutions they could not predict." The crew exchanged glances. They were not invincible, they were far from perfect, but they were human, resourceful, adaptable. And that, Kale explained, was their greatest advantage. Over the following weeks, the tests continued. The fleet sent pulses that disrupted navigation systems, illusions that simulated internal crises, and challenges that required split-second decision-making. Each time, the crew adapted. Each time, they learned something new about themselves and each other. Elias discovered patience he had never known. Mara found intuition she had always ignored. Even the engineers, quiet and methodical, demonstrated creative solutions that impressed Kale. "You are learning faster than I anticipated," Kale admitted one day. "Humanity's capacity to adapt is remarkable, but the greatest trial is yet to come." One evening, as the crew rested, the fleet's true nature became clear. A colossal ship emerged from the distance, its surface shimmering with energy as though it were alive. The smaller ships formed a protective formation around it. Kale's glow intensified. "They are sentinels," it explained, "guardians of the test. The core of this fleet evaluates civilizations, and now you will meet it." Elias felt a mix of awe and tension. Humanity had survived many threats, but this was beyond anything they had imagined. Still, he remembered Kale's words. Humans rise to meet challenges, and they would rise again. The Aurora moved toward the colossal ship, guided by Kale's energy fields. As they approached, strange symbols appeared on the hull of the Sentinel ship, glowing in response to the Aurora's presence. Kale extended a hand, touching the surface of the ship. The symbols shifted, forming patterns that the crew could somehow understand, not as words but as intentions. "They are speaking," Mara whispered. "Yes," Kale said, "and now you respond." The crew, with Kale's guidance, synchronized their energy fields with the ship. It was not an attack, nor a defense. It was communication, connection, understanding. Humans had no universal language with the Sentinels, but they had something unique: creativity, empathy, and courage. They reached out in ways machines could not, in ways only living beings could. Slowly, the colossal ship pulsed in return, and the fleet shifted formation, no longer aggressive but observant. Kale's glow dimmed slightly, a sign of approval. "You have passed the first true trial," it said. "But remember, observation is not the end. The Sentinels will continue to watch. They will test, probe, and challenge, but each time humanity has proven its worth." Elias exhaled, feeling both relief and resolve. They were not alone. They were part of something larger, a cosmic web of forces beyond human understanding. Yet, they had demonstrated what Kale had predicted. Humans were capable of rising, adapting, and surpassing expectations. That night, as the crew gazed out at the fleet now retreating into the distance, Kale hovered silently. "The journey is only beginning," it said. "But today, you have shown that humans can meet the impossible and emerge stronger. Never forget this. Your potential is only limited by your imagination and your will." Elias nodded. "We will remember, and we will continue to rise." Kale's glow faded to a soft, steady light, signaling both rest and readiness. The crew, exhausted but invigorated, prepared for what lay ahead. The tests had changed them. They were no longer merely explorers. They were pioneers, bearers of humanity's hope in the vast, uncharted reaches of the galaxy. The stars outside the Aurora twinkled with quiet approval. Somewhere far beyond their reach, unknown eyes watched, measuring. But Elias knew one thing with certainty: humanity would meet every challenge, adapt, and endure. And Kale, who had waited so long, had finally found the right humans to guide. The universe was vast, mysterious, and dangerous. But humans had risen before, and they would rise again. The stars stretched endlessly before the Aurora, but this time the silence was different. There was tension in the void, a weight that pressed against the hull. Captain Elias Rowe stood on the observation deck, staring at the distant fleet of Sentinels. They had returned, larger, more organized, and their glowing symbols pulsed with a rhythm that Elias could feel in his chest. "They're here for the final trial," Kale said softly, hovering beside him. Its glow was brighter than ever, casting patterns of light across the deck. "This will test everything you have learned, and it will measure the true strength of humanity." Lieutenant Mara Voss clenched her fists. "Final trial, are we ready?" Elias shook his head slowly. "I don't know if anyone is ever ready for something like this, but we have to face it together." Kale extended its hand toward the main console. "Then prepare. This is not just about defense or survival. It is about understanding, creation, and unity." The Aurora's systems hummed in response to Kale's energy. Every console, every panel, and even the ship's propulsion cores glowed with a new rhythm. The crew felt it, an almost electric sense of connection between them and the vessel itself. As the Sentinel fleet advanced, their shapes became clear. Hundreds of ships, shimmering like silver and glass, moved with perfect synchronization. Elias felt the enormity of it. These were not ordinary enemies or explorers. They were evaluators, testing every capability of his crew and the ship. The first pulse struck without warning. A wave of energy cascaded across the Aurora, shaking systems, sending alarms screaming and throwing the crew off balance. But this time, Elias and the team reacted immediately. They channeled the energy through the ship, guided by Kale's instruction, redirecting it to strengthen the shields rather than resist blindly. "Focus," Kale's voice rang clearly. "Think with your instincts, feel the flow, trust each other." Elias extended his hands to the main console. Light surged through him, and for a moment he could see the Aurora as a living being, each system pulsing like a heart. He felt Mara beside him, the engineers, and even Kale's energy, everything connected. Together, they became one. The Sentinels' attacks grew more complex. Simulated crises erupted on the ship, failing engines, false alarms of hull breaches, and even holographic illusions of enemy intrusions. Each test forced the crew to adapt, to make split-second decisions, and to rely on instincts rather than instructions. "Don't panic," Mara whispered, guiding energy fields around the engines. "We can do this. We've done it before," Elias nodded. "Exactly, humanity adapts. We survive and we rise." Hours passed. The tests pushed them to the brink. Exhaustion gnawed at the edges of their focus, but Kale's guidance kept them aligned. And then the final trial began. The colossal Sentinel ship, the core of the fleet, emitted a pulse that filled space itself. The light was blinding, and for a moment the crew felt the weight of infinity pressing down. The symbols on the Sentinel's surface shifted into complex patterns, projecting a challenge that was not physical. It was mental, emotional, and creative. "They want to see your ingenuity," Kale explained. "Not just strength, not just courage. They want to see what only humans can do." Elias took a deep breath. He realized that they were no longer fighting the Sentinels in the usual sense. They were collaborating with them, reaching out in ways that were unique to living beings. Machines could mimic logic, but humans could invent, improvise, and empathize. That was their edge. The crew sprang into action. Kale guided them in synchronizing the ship's energy with the patterns projected by the Sentinel. Each human mind contributed, some calculated, some intuitive, others emotional. Together, they created a response that was more than defense. It was a form of expression, a message of unity, resilience, and hope. The Sentinel pulsed in reply, and for the first time, Elias felt that they were not being tested alone. They were being acknowledged. The fleet shifted formation, and the core's energy brightened as if in approval. Kale's glow intensified, a sign of satisfaction. "You have done it," Kale said, its voice soft but filled with awe. "You have demonstrated what makes humanity remarkable. You do not simply survive. You create, adapt, and rise beyond limits. Today, you have proven your worth." But the challenge was not over. Suddenly, a series of energy waves struck the Aurora, far more powerful than before. The Sentinels were testing endurance and strategy. Each wave required precise energy manipulation, rapid adaptation, and trust among the crew. Elias, feeling the rhythm of the ship and the energy flows, guided the team. "We've learned from Kale. We know how to adapt. Focus on the flow, not the fear." Mara and the engineers channeled energy fields to reinforce the hull, redirecting pulses, while Elias coordinated shield patterns and Kale amplified their effectiveness. The ship seemed to breathe under their control, responding like a living organism. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the waves ceased. Silence returned to the void, except for the soft hum of the aurora. The Sentinels hovered, no longer testing but observing. The colossal ship emitted one final pulse, a warm, steady glow that resonated throughout the aurora's hull. Kale's eyes shone brightly. "You have passed all trials. The Sentinels recognize your potential. Humanity is worthy." Elias exhaled deeply, letting the tension drain away. His crew gathered around him, exhausted but exhilarated. They had faced the unknown and survived. They had adapted, created, and risen to challenges beyond imagination. Mara smiled, a mix of relief and pride. "We did it. We actually did it." "Yes," Kale said softly. "But remember, this is only the beginning. The universe is vast, full of wonders and challenges. But now you have seen what humans can achieve when they rise together, trust themselves, and embrace their potential." Elias looked at Kale and then at his crew. "We'll continue. We'll explore, we'll face whatever comes next. Humanity will not only survive, we will rise." Kale hovered silently, its glow softening. "And I will guide only when needed. Your growth is your own. Humanity's path is yours to shape." As the aurora moved away from the Sentinel fleet, a new sense of purpose filled the ship. The stars seemed brighter, as if acknowledging their achievement. The crew understood something profound. They were no longer just explorers. They were pioneers, bearers of human ingenuity, courage, and hope. Days turned into weeks as the aurora continued its journey. Kale shared more knowledge, teaching humans to perceive the universe in ways they had never imagined. The crew practiced, experimented, and grew stronger, more confident in their abilities and in their unity. They encountered strange phenomena, energy storms that could have destroyed lesser ships, planets with unstable atmospheres, and signals that defied comprehension. But with Kale's guidance and their own ingenuity, they navigated each challenge, proving again and again that humanity was capable of rising above the unknown. One evening, Elias stood at the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Mara joined him silently. "Do you think we'll ever find the limits of humanity?" she asked. Elias shook his head, a smile on his face. "I don't think there are any limits. Kale showed us that we can rise beyond anything. The universe is vast, but so is human potential. And as long as we trust ourselves and each other, there's nothing we cannot face." Kale appeared beside them, its glow gentle and steady. "Remember this moment. Today, you have become more than survivors. You are a symbol of what humans can achieve. Let this be the foundation of your future journeys." The aurora sailed onward, its systems alive with energy, its crew united and confident. The Sentinel fleet faded into the distance, leaving only the stars as companions, but the lessons remained. Humanity had proven itself capable of more than survival. They had proven their potential to rise, to innovate, and to meet the impossible with courage and creativity. And somewhere, deep in the expanse of space, unseen eyes watched. They would remember the humans of the aurora, the crew who had faced trials beyond imagining and emerged stronger, wiser, and united. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and the universe had taken notice. Elias gazed at the infinite sky, feeling both the weight of responsibility and the thrill of possibility. "This is only the beginning," he said softly. "Humanity will rise, no matter what awaits." Kale's glow pulsed in agreement, and the stars outside seemed to shine a little brighter. For the first time in the history of the Aurora, and perhaps for humanity itself, the universe felt like a place of infinite opportunity. And the humans aboard that small ship knew one undeniable truth: together they could face anything. Together they would rise.